Welcome to Allies or Enemies. I'm Jess.
And I am Shawn, and this is part 3 of our top 100 board games. And this time we are counting down the 70s.
One thing we haven't mentioned is Shawn and I mainly play games, just the two of us. It's usually whatever game it is, we try and make it work for two. So most of the things that are on our list work great for two.
We do occasionally get something that we want to maybe people are wrong and we can make this work for two. We've definitely made that mistake. Sometimes we've made it work.
Yeah.
But we've definitely made that mistake on occasion.
And those few ones probably aren't on our list.
I think a couple got on here anyway that we've kind of forced. But if you do want to learn a little bit more about how some of these games work for two, we've got other videos, and a lot of these are going to be in those videos. And we always have a little section about that specifically, about how does this play for two. Yeah. But let's not talk about those other videos. Let's talk about this video. And let's get rolling with it.
Yeah, you kicked things off last time, so I think it's back to me.
Yep, all right. Well, why don't you kick us off?
My number 80, I've grouped under 1. It is the Unlock games. So these are a box that come with usually a set of 3, and it takes about an hour to play. It's kind of like an escape room in a box. The last one we played was Mythic Adventures, and that one was great. Most of the other ones, we've really kind of maybe 2 out of the 3, but I love co-op games, so I love working together to try and solve this puzzle.
Yeah, I think the Mythic one was really good, and I think they've actually been getting better at them as they've gone. I think some of those first ones were they tried some things and not everything worked, and I think that one was great because they I was going to say they got back to basics, but no, they had like some really cool kind of things that they did with the camera. I didn't think you could do with the camera.
We hadn't seen that in some other ones either.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it because it's legitimately pretty cool. But I'd say start at the end maybe and work backwards.
Yeah.
I think they're getting better at them.
I think so too. That's my number 80.
My number 80 is Champions of Midgard. And this is a game we've had for a little while, and it's kind of bounced up and down on my list a little bit. But it is a very cool game where you're collecting up dice who are kind of like mercenaries who work for you, and then you're using them to fight monsters. And there's different levels of monsters, and some you've got to send ships out to the far reaches to fight, and those are more dangerous. And some are right at home, and then there's expansion ones, and with both expansions, you've actually got quite a bit going on in this game too, and it is a really cool game. And there's times that I just love this, and there's times it just falls down a little bit on the list.
And this is one that I think actually works really well for 2-player because if you want to fight something, you will be able to. Whereas if you're playing with more, you do have some more monsters to fight, but not quite the same extent. So we really go out there. We really do some slaying.
Yeah. We usually have 3 or 4 different monsters we're fighting. Yeah, it'd be interesting actually to play with more because you're right. Because you really, you don't add, I think you add one of the distant kind of scene monsters, but otherwise you've got the same number of monsters, but just a lot more competition fighting them. So I imagine you probably take fewer risks because we do a lot of 1 dice on a monster.
And just hope for the best.
And just hope for the best. Yeah, we can spread those resources. But that is my number 80.
My number 79 is Lords of Waterdeep. So this is often one that gets recommended as one of the first kind of starters to get into worker placement. And it is worker placement, and you go to different spots to hire these different cubes, which represent people, and you use that to complete quests. There's also a stack of buildings that come out, and you can get those to be spaces that you go visit as well. So it is just that fun puzzle of what colors that you need in what order, and then trying to sabotage your opponent a little bit too.
Yeah, there's these mean cards that you can send people on kind of terrible quests where you only get a couple points, but it's just a bit of a pain in your butt. It is like you say, kind of a starter worker placement game. But as you get those buildings and you add them out, you can have a lot of spaces on the board that you can choose from, and there is quite a bit of it's not rules heavy, but there's a lot of options that build throughout the game, which works well. And apparently it's got a really cool expansion too, but we haven't tried it.
Great things about it. So that was Lords of Waterdeep.
My number 79 is Gizmos. And I really like Gizmos. I really like Phil Walker Harding's just kind of like light to middleweight, just easy to understand but a lot going on games. And he's got a bunch of them, and he's really good at just boiling down a complicated system into something so simple that it's like, why aren't all games like this a little bit? And this one really does a great job of that too. So it's like an engine building game, and you're getting these cards, and then you're adding cards so that as you do this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. And the machines get quite complicated, and kind of the string of things that happen to get you these marbles, and then you use those marbles, you spend those marbles, you get other things, you're trying to get these like higher level cards in this pyramid. And it's surprisingly thinky for a game that's like one page of rules.
Yeah, no, there is a lot to it, and whether to get lots of the low value ones because you can get those quick, or save up and get the higher value ones, which will get you big points and then kind of bring you closer.
Yeah, it's kind of a mix of both strategies, and it's just we talked about this with yours too. I love the gumball machine and grabbing the marbles and chucking the marbles back in.
Yeah.
It's a really fun game. That's number 79.
17, please.
My number 78 is Root. This is an area control one, but it's asymmetric. All of the factions play very, very differently and have different goals. I'm normally not a huge fan of kind of war-themed games, but I do love how different the factions play. And so just the strategy behind that hooks me in. If I play one, I want to try a different one. If I'm not feeling like fighting, I can be the vagabond. This is one that works great at 4. For 2-player, we weren't so sure until we got the Clockwork expansion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the clock, and we made a video about this, and we talked about like playing with 2 factions and stuff. And I really wish I want to go back actually and redo that now that we've had the Clockwork expansion, because it works shockingly well, and I'm excited. We've already got on pre-order the other factions, the Clockwork bots for the other factions, and then also the 2 new, and we've got all of the factions, because I love that. You'll hear more about this one later.
Yeah, we play a lot of this one.
My number 78 is, I think, maybe the lightest game on my list. They don't come that much lighter, but it's Ice Cool. And Ice Cool is a flicking game. It's a dexterity game, and what it is you've got the box. Actually, it's really smart how they've done this. So the box has smaller boxes in the box, and you take those apart and you build a school. And some of your penguins are trying to skip school and leave school, and some of your penguins are hall monitors. So someone's trying to get out. Well, usually there's multiple people trying to kind of escape class, and then there's one hall monitor who's trying to tag them all. So you're flicking them through different doorways, and you collect up fish, and you get points that way. It's super simple. You could easily play this with like a 5-6-year-old, and they would love it. But you can also play it with a bunch of adults around the table late at night. Flicking the penguins around is a blast. It's a really fun, really simple game.
Yes, and this may appear shortly on my list, so I think I'll save my comments for just in a minute.
So that was my 78.
77.
My number 77 is Grand Austria Hotel. So in this game, it's very Euro looking. It's these people who've checked into this hotel, and you have to feed them food and drinks and get their rooms ready and send them away. It's a dice drafting game, so you roll your dice and then you have to pick your turns and do your actions. But there are only 7 rounds and 2 turns per round. So you try and do all of this in 14 turns. And halfway through, it seems impossible. It seems like it's not going to work. And I love that tightness of it and that kind of trying to figure it out and what do I do now?
Yeah, the theme in this is absurd. The theme is that someone has come to your hotel and they want a room, but it's so specifically like this hour period that you have to entertain them between when they wanted to get the room and when the room's ready.
Yeah.
It's such a strange... I don't think they've ever had this situation in real life.
No.
And it is one that I think I wouldn't play with more than 2 players. You could not talk me into playing this with 4 players just because of that sneaking. It's gonna... Whew.
And it's thinky, so turns are not quick.
No, and you said it feels like it's impossible to do everything in 14 turns. It is impossible to do everything in 14 turns. I can't get my head around this one, but I definitely recognize it's a good game and it's well made.
Yeah. So my 77 was Grand Austria Hotel.
My number 77 is Teotihuacan. It's based on the ancient Mexican city, and it is this. It's really cool. It's actually another dice placement game, a dice worker game, like you were just talking about, and it is this really interesting system that's kind of different from any other game that I know of, where you're moving your dice. They go around the board, so they have to kind of continually go clockwise around the board, and they're gathering resources. They're building a pyramid, and the cool thing is every time they're moving, they're gaining experience or getting older. I'm not sure which. And once they get to 6, they ascend or die, really. So it's this really cool mechanic that I can't think of anything else that has that.
Yeah, no, it is great, and it has other options of like locking in a worker, and so I often do that because it's a quick way up the temples, but then you might spend a whole turn unlocking. So there's just so many decisions to be made, and it's so fluid based on where everybody else's dice are as well.
And you've got to feed them coffee constantly. They are like coffee fiends.
They love their cocoa,
workers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're feeding them cocoa, but I'm picturing that you're using it to soup them up, build that temple quick, get those resources. But it's a really cool game. It looks great too, and it's just a really clever dice placement. And that is my number 77.
76.
My number 76 is Forbidden Desert. So again, this is a co-op game. I love co-op games. This is part of the Forbidden series. So it starts off with Forbidden Island, then Forbidden Desert, and Forbidden Sky. I'm kind of just grouping them all as this one. It's the one that we have here. And it's great. You're working as a team to try and unbury yourself, find your ship parts, and escape off the island before it gets covered in sand. And I love that.
Yeah, and it's a great series too. The thing I didn't even realize about the series at first, and then I just noticed it recently, is Forbidden Island, you leave in a helicopter, then you see that helicopter crashed in Forbidden Desert, and you leave in an airship.
Like a flying airship.
A dirigible. And then that crashes for...
Forbidden Sky.
Forbidden Sky, and then you take off in a rocket ship. And Forbidden Sky, the rocket ship actually makes noises when it takes off, which I didn't expect, and it blew my mind.
Yeah, and for this one, it is great. We lose about half the time, which is kind of great for a co-op because it keeps pushing you to try again.
My number 76 is Zombie Teens, and I'm kind of grouping it in with Zombie Kids. And I know this one isn't for everyone. This is the least watched video, I think, on our channel by a lot. But you know what? I love it. It's meant to be a kid's game, and I don't care. I still watch Pokemon, and I still eat chocolate cereal for breakfast, and I'm still gonna play a kid's board game, and it's legitimately really fun. It's super simple at first, and in both of the different games, you've only got 3 things that you can do, and it's you can move, you can fight a zombie, or in teens, you can move a box. In kids, you can lock these gates. But as you go, you open new things, and I'm not really going to say what the things are because it is a campaign, and it is legitimately fun to get the new things. And it does get more complex as it goes, and I'm not going to say it gets so complex, but it gets a little bit more complex, and it's just fun to have a game that's like 10-minute games, and you can like zip through the campaign. And I think we played it in like a day, like we played a whole one in a day, but it cost us like $15. So it was a fun $15.
Yeah, it was when we were in isolation, so we couldn't leave our apartment, and it was great just to have that full day of entertainment and playing through and completing these missions. It was exactly what we needed.
You just gotta kill them zombies. They're great though, and if you have kids, get them for sure, because kids are gonna love them. And that was my 76.
75.
My number 75 is Ice Cool. So Shawn already spoke about it before, and it's these penguins that are trying to skip school and these other penguins that are trying to catch them. And I love a good dexterity game. It is super silly. They have lots of different ways you can play, because you can try and tag each other, or you can play a race version too. And the cards that you mentioned, some of those cards are like trick-taking cards. So you have to try and like jump your penguin over a wall, or bounce off two edges and through a door. And so those are always fun to do as you're like chasing each other around.
And when you say trick-taking, she doesn't mean trick-taking like a normal board game of like getting a matching trick. She means like actual doing tricks. You get the card and you take the challenge of flipping your penguin over a door or bouncing through two at once, which is fun. And I didn't talk about the races too, because if you have Ice Cool 1 and Ice Cool 2, which we do, you can combine both of them to make like a massive Ice Cool, and then you can do these fun races, which actually for 2 players I think is probably the better way to play. 2 players works okay. It's kind of just a tag hide and seek game, but the races are really fun.
We enjoy all ways of playing Ice Cool.
My number 75 is an ultra popular game. You definitely know it. It is Wingspan. In Wingspan, it's a great game. It's the artwork is beautiful. It's a clever game. Like the tower that you put the dice down to get the bird seed is so cool. The production's so cool. The mats are like, everything about it is really nice. I think the one thing that holds it back a little bit is I just don't care about birds. I'm sorry, but they've always freaked me out since I saw the Hitchcock movie as a kid, and I don't think I've ever gotten over that. And I just can't get that into them. So I think theme's such a big deal for me that like I love the mechanics. And if you put out a Wingspan that's dinosaurs, this is gonna be way up on my list. But Wingspan, just the birds doesn't quite connect, but the rest of the game's cool. And if you like birds, it kind of hits all cylinders, I think.
Yeah, I really, really like this one. I have a zoology background, so yeah, I love some bird facts, and it's all accurate. I've got some real bird enthusiast friends, and they say that everything on there is scientifically accurate, which is great. And I've got a feeling we may hear more about Wingspan down the list a little bit too.
17.
My number 74 is Star Wars Rebellion. So this is another one of those games that can take kind of a good 3 hours to play through, but feels like a story that you're telling, this big epic adventure. I like Star Wars. Shawn loves Star Wars. So it is great to play through that story. I like being the Empire because I love having kind of the mass military and all of this forces trying to find the rebellion. I've only been the rebellion once or twice because I get so scared. Like, it's just the Empire has all of these ships and all of these guys and everything in production, and you start with so few, and I just don't have any hope. You love being rebellion because you really think, all right, with like against all odds, I can overcome this.
It really is fun being the underdog in that game, and you see the like massive odds. It's funny how differently we see this, and then you're just this little plucky group, and you gotta hide where your planet is, and there's this really fun kind of hide and seek of like, oh, is my base over here? Is it over here? And they're trying to find it while you build up just enough to get by. It's a really fun game. I think the one problem is it's long and we always forget it a bit, so we always have to relearn it.
Yeah. Whereas if I'm the rebellion, I think, nope, I'm just gonna lose, and I get grumpy. But when we play in our roles, it's great.
My number 74 is Disney Villainous. Disney Villainous. So there's a few reasons I really like this. This really, it's just a good fit for me because first of all, it's asymmetric factions, and I love that. I'm a huge fan of that. And then also, it's pretty and it's collectible, and these are real weaknesses for me. And I will actually sometimes not buy a game because I'm like, I'm gonna buy all of this game, so I got to steer clear of this game. But this one, they've had just enough expansions, and they're really cool. Like the new one had Black Cauldron. I love Black Cauldron. And Gaston, and they all, it's like they're not that well, what's the word? Balanced against each other. Like there are some that are going to be way stronger. There's definitely flaws in the game, and I can see that, but I love looking at the collection of it.
Yeah, I love Disney. I'm super onto that theme. But it is a game meant to be frustrating because you are your villain trying to complete your like evil plot, and then the other person is also doing that but is trying to make sure you don't complete it. So is purposely like destroying your plans and getting in your way. So you get so far and you think you can do it, and then the other person sets you like 3 steps back, and so it can be frustrating, but it's frustrating on purpose.
It's pointedly mean. It's very mean. If you don't like mean games, steer clear of this one because it's very mean, but it's fun, and they nail the themes too. Like everyone feels like they should feel, which is really fun.
Yeah.
So that is my 74.
73.
My number 73 is Explorers of the North Sea. So this is part of the North Sea trilogy. I've mentioned before, I love games that you are building something, you have something to show for the end, and this is exactly that. So you're Vikings and you're building out and you're adding to these islands, you're collecting all of these different types of animals, and I am a sucker for animal meeples. So I love the cows and the chickens and the pigs, they're all great. And you are finding ships and you're claiming these territories. So I love that process. And each time you get a leader, and all of the leaders give you a little bit of a different goal, which is fun. So you don't kind of get stuck in kind of doing the same thing again and again.
Yeah, I love anything where you're exploring different mini islands. Wind Waker is by far my favorite Zelda game. Love it. I love the sail to the different islands, and then you're building your different islands. You feel a little bit like you're exploring them, and you've got all these different things to do and the different bosses. It's really cool, and I think kind of overlooked a little bit from his games. People really love the West Kingdom, as do we, and the Raiders I think gets a lot of kind of the play in this early one. But I think Explorers is kind of a little bit of an overlooked gem.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much the starting board can make a difference, because whether you start with the beginning of 2 islands or no islands can completely change the game as well. So we've played a few back-to-back, and they've all felt very different.
Mm-hmm. My number 73, and I feel like I've had a lot of light games in this list, and this is very much going to change that. This is a Vital Lacerda game, and this is The Gallerist. The Gallerist is an art gallery, and everything in it, it's Ian O'Toole's artwork, and it feels very classy. Like if your kind of older, like, fancy friends came over and saw you playing a game, this is the game you'd want them to see. And it's got what you're trying to do is you're hiring artists, and those artists are making works for you that you're commissioning, and then you're putting those into your gallery. Like all of Lacerda's games, it's very much this kind of clockworky, like you got to do this to make this happen, to do this, to do this, to do this, and you've got to always be thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead. It really hits a sweet spot for me, because I'm the first thing we do when we go to any city, I think, is look at the galleries. We're real suckers for galleries, especially modern. So this really fits in that niche for me.
Yeah, it is a great game. It is very thinky because of having to plan ahead. And you also have assistants that you can leave at the spot that you kind of left behind. So you might be able to predict where your opponent might go. Mm. And if they're going to go where you just left, then you can kind of go down and do that action too. So it is great. A turn can take a while as you figure out, all right, I will do that bonus action, and then I'm going to do my full turn. But it is a great game.
72.
My 72 is Potion Explosion. So this is a fairly light game, and you have all of these marbles, and what you try and do is you take a marble and then clack together ones of the same color, and then you take those, and then if the same color clacks again, you get to take those. So you're building up all of these marbles, and your goal is to fill these potions because you're a student in a potions class. And once you fill those potions, they give you a power that you can use, and you try and complete as many as you can and get the most points. Some of them are worth different amounts as well, so you might try and take the challenge of getting more marbles for a higher point potion. And it's just super fun. I really enjoy playing it. It's really light. We play it very quickly, have a great time drinking our potions, and it's fun.
Yeah, this is the most Phil Walker Harding game that Phil Walker Harding didn't make.
Yep.
I think, like, I thought it was by him until just recently, just because it really has that feeling. And it's simple, but it's got that great, that clacking and grabbing the marbles and putting the marbles into your potions and drinking the potions. And it's also got because there's different potions, you can always play with the same ones too. It's got some variability in it as well that it makes it fun. It's great. It's a great one for kind of like all ages too.
Yeah.
My number 72 is Dice Hospital, and it feels like this part of the list is a ton of dice placement games. This is another one, but the cool thing is this is so different from any other dice placement game that I've played. So you've got your hospital, and you've got your dice, and your dice are your patients. And so you got to heal them by getting their numbers up until they get to 7, right? Obviously, the dice only go to 6, so once they get to 6, you can put them into your discharge and you can send them away. But the tricky is if you don't heal them fast enough, they're going to slowly get worse, and then they actually die, which is a little sad. And they go to the morgue, and you're given a little tombstone for them.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because as you play, like, each round, you add to your hospital or you add new specialists, and it's just a really creative, cool game.
I love how the boards too, all the patients are dice as well, which is kind of a super fun touch with that. And yeah, the rooms that you get and the specialists that you get make it a really interesting puzzle. And you do your dice drafting first, and then it's simultaneous actions, which is really good because that puzzling bit can take a while, but at least everybody's doing it at the same time.
Yeah, I love simultaneous action games. I think if you can make a simultaneous game, that's the way to do it, because it works so well it doesn't matter how many people are playing. We could play with this with 2 to, I think you can only play to 4 because that's how many boards there are. But and it's going to take basically the same amount of time.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was my 72.
71.
My 71 is Eclipse, and specifically the second edition is the one that we have. And it's a great space game. You're all given different factions to be, and they all play very differently and have different goals. And you're exploring space, you have things to fight. In 2 players, it's really good because you do have a lot of different things to fight, so you're not necessarily having to fight each other. Maybe you do go after each other. You have to do some research and build your ships that you're going to use. And it feels really quick for this kind of game. I think it plays for us in just over an hour, which for this type of game is really good. And we always kind of feel like, oh, it's done already? But that feeling for a game is great. It's much better that you have that than like, oh, this has been going on forever.
This is one that we like it for 2 players because we don't love fighting against each other, but it's got these kind of NPCs that are like 2 different kinds of NPCs, where there's like the tough guys and then the not so tough guys, and there's also like it's a Death Star in the middle that you're fighting. So that gives you plenty to fight, and then also the exploration. And there's so many parts to make your ship and build your ship. So I think it works great for us for 2, but if you do want that combat, you're probably going to want to have 3 or 4.
Yeah, and what I love about this is the different factions, because some of them are really about combat, some of them are about research, some of them are about kind of building your ship, and so figuring each one out is great for replayability and makes us like play it again and again to try and puzzle it out.
My number 71 is Suburbia. And I love city building. I'm nuts for it. I've played SimCity so many, like just the original black and white SimCity so much. And I feel like I'm always kind of chasing that. And I love any game that has that feel of building it. And this one does a really cool job. And we've got the like the collector's edition one that came out recently. And so it does look a little bit prettier, because I know one complaint with the original is it wasn't as pretty as it could be. That's definitely not a complaint with this one. This one it looks really cool. And it's really fun to kind of combo them together. We always think by the time we get to the last round, we're like, my brain cannot handle one more round.
Yeah.
This is as much as I can
hold at once, because every time you put a tile in, it affects everything else in your area, maybe something in somebody else's area. It's a lot to remember. And they have some fun tiles, and I'm a sucker for fun tiles. Like if the amusement park big boardwalk comes out, I want to get that. The haunted house I want to get. So those fun tiles really keep me interested in, ooh, what's out now?
Yeah, it's cool because the collector's one comes with all of the expansions with it, as well as I think there was like a collector's special expansion, and that's like the night one.
Oh, okay.
And so it's called Nightlife, but it's got like haunted house, it's got like a ghost house,
werewolf den,
a werewolf den, like some vampire thing, and there's a lot of these kind of there's some real serious buildings, but then there's a lot of these tongue-in-cheek buildings as well, and it's fun to have the mix of the two.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So that was my 71. And that is it. Thanks a bunch for watching part 3. And obviously we're going to have more of these coming, so we're going to count it all the way down to number 1.
And we would love you to play along too. So if you want to share with us your top 100, please stick them in the comments. Feel free to do kind of 10 at a time, or even just your top 10. We'd love to see what you're playing.
Yeah, do however many you feel like, or just like and subscribe, or feel free to leave a comment as well. All of that stuff helps us a bunch, and we really appreciate everyone for watching these videos.
And we'll hopefully see you for the next one.